Howdy, everybody. It's the dad. I had a memory pop up, or a thought actually, that I felt like is obvious, but maybe not to everybody, but it knowing it and considering it might help keep a better perspective on things than not knowing it or considering it. I remember when I was a kid, especially, there's a couple of distinct memories I have. Um, One is when we lived in North Carolina, and one of my best friends at that time, his name was Jeff Vaughn. He and his had a brother named Paul, um, and I remember it reminded me of something else, and maybe I'll tell you later as a added bonus or something. But yes, I remember that being a very good time. We were real friends, just every morning, and I'd go knock on their door, or he'd come knock on my door, especially in the summer. We'd always be doing something. But one of the things I remember is they taught me this game called wall ball. And you take like a racket, real bouncy, legit racquetball, not a racket, a racquetball, and you had to throw it against the wall, and it could only, no, it could bounce as many times. Oh no, you had to throw it there in the air, and it would come back, and you had to catch it with one hand. If you missed it or it bounced off your hand, you had to run to the wall and touch the wall before someone else picked up the ball and threw it at you and hit you with it. If they hit you with it before you got to the wall, it was a demerit. And if you got 3 demerits, you had to face the firing squad. And that means you stand up against the wall like this, and they all get a turn, beaming you with a ball. It was a blast. We had tons of fun playing that game. A couple of things that I remember about that now is where we lived, there was a single bay carport, and we would play in there. And it had a wall, with a storage unit embedded in it, but it had 2 doors that closed, and we used that wall, and it had a little alleyway on the side that you could walk in and out to get to the backyard as well. I don't know if I'm describing this very well. Think of a garage with a back door, but no door. It was just open. And then on this side was a shielded area with it had wood that went out and a wood panel that went across the middle. So there was open air on the top, open air on the bottom. With wood beams that kind of went up, spaced about 6 feet apart or something like that, for the size of the garage. So it wasn't like you were sealed in a enclosed area, you still had air travel and stuff like that. But I don't know why that was important. But in any case, I remember Paul, making an acrobatic catch, diving on the ground, making sure he caught it with one hand. And, I recall several times where I missed it and I'm running up there and I fall to the ground at the last minute to touch the wall, and the ball would go boink right up there, and I, duck just in time, thinking, we're doing these superhero moves and making these really athletic plays and catches. And I remember we were felt like it was so airy and so big in the place we were playing. I looked at, Google Earth and Google Maps is kind of a fun thing. You can check out your old houses and stuff. And I found that house a while back. This is a while back. They might not be there anymore because it was on base on an Air Force base. But I found the house, and I looked at that garage, and it was barely wide enough for one car to go in. And I remember it being this huge arena style place, but it was just so small. I'm like, how did three of us fit in there? And I'm like, well, three probably couldn't now being full grown, but we were tiny. It was the second and third grade, yeah, it was second and third grade when we were fully immersed in our wall ball awesomeness. But it's a matter of perspective. Where you are and what you're surrounded by really is a result of the size of you at the time. And it doesn't matter, and it's not always physical size. It can be how you think, what you know, your physical size, your abilities. So many times, I remember one time Megan was so frustrated with, I'm always a starter, is what she said. She was frustrated that she was picking up something new and she wasn't good at it right away. And, she expected to be good at it. And I get that. Makes perfect sense. But, yeah, we get the perspective of something being too big for us, or, maybe now too small for us. But that perspective, it changes over time. And let me kind of go to a second story real quick. When I lived in Maine, one of the things that my friends and I would do we would play baseball, and I've alluded to this before. With three people, we'd go out and play baseball. But we lived in a court area where it's like, imagine just an apartment complex that goes down, across, there's a gap, an air gap, and then up like this, and then at the end of the road, okay? But we're not talking just one or two apartments, we're talking a line of them. And now, this is perspective, because it seems like, if I remember right, it was quite a few houses. Like, we walked to the bus stop at the end by the telephone pole at the front of the apartments, at the courtyard. But inside the courtyard was wide open. It was open space. And it had a sidewalk that went around the whole inside. And obviously it led up to each house. And I remember there being one, so each sidewalk, then there were two apartments. Then you'd walk up and they were like this, and then a door and a door. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there was like 8 across the back. And in the corner one, that's where Brian Williams lived. And we lived on the second to the last one before the gap. And then there's this one, and then there's another one that's just like it down the road. It was 208 Falloy is what we lived on. And you'd have all these repeated apartment complexes, if you will, that just went around inside the Air Force Base. And honestly, that made it fun for Halloween and stuff, because you go dook, 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 dook. You hit all those doors in your court, run to the next one, and they were 2-story, and it was no air conditioning because it was Maine, but they did have radiators in the house. They were hot. In the winter, you don't just rest on those. But in any case, baseball. We played a lot of baseball, and what we would do is we would set up home plate like right near where the opening was. And then we put the bases on the inside. And our rule was, if you hit it over the apartments, it was a home run. And we would use ghost runners and stuff like that. But we had to learn to hit left-handed to get it over this way. Because if you're hitting right-handed, you're hitting, you have to go down to the street and this way over there. So we're all trying to bat left-handed and hit it up over there. And I can't believe we didn't hit windows and stuff. I don't remember ever us hitting a window, but I remember a lot of us hitting home runs, smoking it over that thing. And now I think about it, I'm like, was it very far? That kind of thing. It might not have been very far. But my point is, I'm like, almost every day, all summer long, we would meet out there and do that we did that for a long time. But then, and that perspective is, what size is it now? I don't know. That they tore those down a long time ago, I think. The houses on Loring Drive, I think still exist, but the ones on Feloy were gone when I went to look for them. But, so I don't really have a good perspective on that. But what I do know about that, and just like when we're playing wall ball, is there's a day that it's the last time you're ever going to do it, that you're ever going to play it. There was a day where I played a lot of softball that it was the last time that I would ever get together with those friends and play a softball game or have a softball practice. My flag football team, same way. The Turkey Bowl that I mentioned before in another video, there was a last one, at least for me, they might still be having them, but there was a last time that I was with all my friends and we were doing the things that we did. And I think y'all get that, but it sneaks up on you. And I didn't know it was my last time when I was doing it. So you don't get to say all the things that you maybe ought to say or could say, or maybe even should say, as it being its last time. And so what's the point of this story? The point is two-faced, or two-faced, two-sided. One is the perspective. The perspective that you have on something, don't be, or I'm talking to myself kind of mostly, so you might have a good handle on this. But don't feel like you know everything about everything. Don't feel like you got it figured out. Don't feel like there's no way you can do it because it's too big, or there's no way it's going to be good for you because it's too small. You kind of have to take everything with the right mindset so that you're not thinking about it in its final state. Because there's always something to learn. There's always, growing to do. There's always a way that you're looking at it that might not be the right way. It might not be the truth. You might not have all the facts. Like when we were little playing that wall ball game, seems like it was a big space. I remember it being a big space. I would testify in a court of law that it was a pretty good space. But after looking at it now, it wasn't. It was a tiny little area. Interesting, to me. And then the second thing is in everything you do and all that you are and all that you say and all that you think, there might be a last time. There's the finality of death on this world. And that's the last time of a lot of things, right? But even in everyday things like work or your relationship or an experience, immediately Christian popped up with volleyball. He's got friends that he playing volleyball with now, and he's kind of just, if I looked at that kid, I would say, yeah, he's a volleyball player. He's thin, he's got good hops, boink, and he's a pretty good volleyball player. But there's probably going to be a last day, if nothing else, at least for your group in that. Like I know he moved from this area to where he is now, and he doesn't meet with this one group that he had here anymore. He might contact him once in a while or something, but that time is over and he's been replaced, because he's gone. So the things that are now, I think, could be wrong, but you might treat them as precious, to where the end is nigh, and you should be treating people in a way that you might be your last time that you do it. I don't know, kind of a dark. It feels like a dark thing to even talk about, but I think it takes us back to the first thing, and that's the perspective. Is that when you think of things in the right way, Like, this might be the last time I ever do this. This might be the last time I'm with this group. This might be, you get it. That can change the first thing, which is the perspective. And your perspective being, wow, this place is huge, or this place is X. Like, maybe that's not the right thing to think about. Maybe it's the final thing that you should be thinking about. The final, the ending. That's what I'm saying. The end is what you should be thinking about, and then enjoying the thing that you're doing. And enjoying doesn't mean fun necessarily. Doesn't mean happiness. I think you can kind of know me a little bit, at least the people watching this, right? That when I say enjoying, it's defining the value of what you're doing instead of just being absorbed by facts that can be changed. Oh, well, yeah. It sounded better when I was thinking about it. I feel like it's kind of, I feel like it's important, but I'm not unable to express in words why I think it's important. Let me know, and I'm going to just say it like every other YouTuber, if you could comment on maybe what you think I'm getting at to help me find words that I might be able to better express it if I talk about this with somebody, okay? I mean, I know some of you are all eloquent with words and stuff, but I'm struggling right now, but I hope I portrayed it by the story and the explaining well enough for you to get where I'm coming from. Because, I mean, the reason I'm making these videos is I'm realizing that there's a last time I'm going to get to talk to y'all. There's a last time that I'm going to get to explain things. There's a last time that you're going to be able to ask me questions. And I don't have a lot of answers, but I might have something that you might find valuable. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Oh well, I'm going to do this video a little different. This is going to be the first half, and then I've got another topic. I got to look at my list here. Let's see what we got here. We got the music that shaped my youth. Is that even something that we need to talk about? And then it says high school, college years, my first job, the cars I've owned, what I had growing up that money couldn't buy, my family history, the decade I'd go back to, and why. That's an interesting one. But yeah, so if you have questions, I mean, I'll try to answer them, and especially if I'm still, on this, what do they call it, on this earth, on this planet, when you get to watch these, then, and I'm not trying to be morbid with all that, by the way. I'm not trying to put a scare or anything. I'm literally, like I'm saying in here, it is a matter of perspective for me and growth that I want to have this stuff documented. Mom has been doing it for years, just in case you didn't know this, and maybe you see this and you don't see other, but she's been putting her prayer journals and writing things down. She's got volumes in her writing, these, mostly prayers, but I'm thinking other things too, stuff that she's working on, her struggles maybe. I'm probably in there a lot on that, and that's maybe a topic that we need to discuss, is because, maybe, yeah, well, we got a little time, right? Yeah, let me talk about this for a second. It's not about Sandy. It's not about your mom or your grandma or your honey or whoever. I was on the phone with my dad the other day, and he was talking about how when we moved, I think it was to Maine. Yeah, no, it was to Texas, because it was the last place that he was stationed, and was moving from Maine to Texas. And he said he got to the Texas uh, air base, reported for duty that first day, and he's the lead guy. He's senior. He's outranking all the other enlisted guys. He's a senior master sergeant, and he said they were talking about the testing, how hard it was, their failures, and my dad said, and this is the first time I've ever heard anything like this. He says, "Yeah, I was trying to fit in and be one of the guys, and I told him, I said, yeah, I failed it 2 times before I finally passed." And he said they all just looked at him like he was a failure or something. And he said it was really awkward. And he goes, but I still outranked him, so it didn't matter, that kind of thing. But I had never heard my dad failed at anything. As I was growing up, I always heard stories of his successes, playing on his football team in high school and all the amazing things that he did. And, stuff that if I tried to tell my family of some of the fun things and successes I had, my wife would go, boom, Sandy would elbow me, because it is cringe. I mean, it is super cringe to sit there bragging on yourself what you used to be. And I get that. And I've done it a couple of times, and I remember, and I felt like, ugh, like icky afterwards. But the thing that I never heard my dad say growing up was when he messed up. And I was taken aback. I was shocked, obviously, because I remember it, right? And I'm sitting here talking to you guys about it. So your relationships and who you portray all the time, and like who your mom or Sandy and I portray to our kids and our grandkids, is like, you don't see it all. You see the result of all the bad and the good on a daily basis. And that can be, and sometimes you would know if it was bad, because, we're, like that, or we might even say your mom and I are having an argument or something, but we never go into any details. I'm wondering if that was good or bad. I don't know. But one thing I'm not locking up. I'm trying to make sure I say things that I should say and not say things that I shouldn't say. And that's hard for me, because I'm usually either vomiting out something I shouldn't say or holding back something I should. So, but we are all fallible. We all make mistakes. When I was little, I saw my dad make a mistake. And it wasn't a thing of interpretation, or, was that right? I saw him make a mistake. And it flattened me. I was overwhelmed by it. So much so that there was a party going on, and we weren't allowed to be downstairs, and we had to be quiet and all these things. And oh man, my cousin Billy can tell you of a story where at one point we didn't do that one time. My dad lit me up, but and that's a perspective thing too, because he could have hurt me. I mean, he was a grown man. I was like 11 or 12. He could, maybe 13. He could have destroyed me, right? Just like you could with a grown man with another 11-year-old. But I remember being tossed around, punched in the chest and stuff, but not punched in the chest. It made a sound. It was terrifying. I wouldn't say terrifying. It was scary, being thrown around, always into stuff that didn't have sharp edges or points. So did he lose control? Yeah. to a degree because he was so mad. But did I really get hurt? No. There was no bruises the next day, no broken nothing, no blood. It was an intimidation scare tactic, which it worked. I was gonna say it was quiet after that. Uh, okay, I'm gonna digress. I'm gonna go into that story. What happened? My cousin Billy. I think I was up. Well, I know I was up there. I think my sister might have been up there. But there were these two kids. And especially this one little boy we hated. He was the whiniest, cryingest kid ever. And we're upstairs. I know we have to be quiet. Billy and I are tossing the football back and forth. This kid says, "Throw it to me, throw it to me." And I'm like, "No, I'm not throwing it to you." And he's like, he's building up the big scream like he always did, crying because he didn't get his way. Just infuriated. And I'm like, okay, I'll throw it to you. He won that battle. I threw it. He missed it. It hit him square in the nose. And what did he do? So there was a no-win for me at that point. Dad was coming up, and I was going to get tossed around like a rag doll. And everybody else's eyes were going to be like saucers, like that. And I think Dad was more mad at Dale Brown, but took it out on me kind of thing because he couldn't take it out on him because he got frustrated with that kid a lot too, I think, just the way he behaved. But it's my dad's friend's son, so what do you do? I think he was a lot younger. Maybe he was 6 or 7 or something like that, but way too old to be doing what he was doing. And man. But anyway, it's kind of a funny story, I thought. I think now. I didn't think it then. But, so you don't know the goods, the bads, that make up everybody and why they are who they are right at the time that you're dealing with them. That someone says walk a mile in their shoes, and I think that's an impossibility because you just don't know where their shoes have been. It's impossible. And it kind of ties back into the story from the last one is, would you trade your troubles for someone else's? And even though my childhood was not a lovey-huggy, affectionate, thing where we spoke openly and I wouldn't trade it. Even though I don't get along with my sister, it is what it is at this point, and something could have been worse. And I'm not saying live in fear of what could be, but I'm also saying this is a thing that's like so aggravating. Some people will say, wait. It's so hard today. It's just like let me just back it up. A lot of people, when something goes wrong, say it could be worse. They're right, but it could be better. So that's not good advice. And then some folks say, well, at least it's not. And they'll name off a thing. Like that makes it better. And it doesn't. So let's just cross that out. Delete those last 3 minutes. And so perspective. Is it your last time of doing something? Is it your last time of doing? This could be my last video, right? That I ever make. And then you might be thankful for that because I could waste like half an hour of your time. But knowing your mom and your dad isn't all that you think it is because there's so much that you just don't know. So back to the story of my dad. I caught him doing this thing, flattened me, like I said. And we were having the party, and I did the thing. I got loud. I called him on it. And he ran upstairs. He was pretty mad. But when he saw me, he stopped. He's like, "What's going on?" And that's one thing about it. He at least he perceived things pretty well, perceptive individual, and my dad was a pretty smart dude. He is a pretty smart dude. Good memory anyway, at least for his tools and such. And he's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "Dad, I saw that." And he said the thing that I don't forgive myself for to this point. He said, "Let's not tell your mom. She wouldn't understand." And I didn't. And I can't. I mean, she's gone now. But it also wouldn't help anything, or wouldn't be helpful or healthy. But that thing, I think, affected me the most in my life. The trust. Trust is hard for me. I have a lot of suspicions and things like that now, or still. It kind of altered the landscape of, of just how things should be, because they don't, because it wasn't the first time that it ever happened. So I'm like, are you doing that all the time? What's the deal? And you don't really need to know what it is. It wouldn't help or add to anything. But to know that, like, one event, one instant can change another person's life really forever. And I'm not sure if it's for the better or worse. That maybe I don't easily trust, and I'm always kind of like suspicious or whatever. But I think one of the positives from it is I feel like, and I might be wrong, but I feel like I'm pretty perceptive as well, and can see things, and that's because maybe I just don't take it at face value, what's going on or what's being said or the things that happen. And I think my wife would say that's just me putting a bad spin on things. But when you experience the pain of the thing that you see, you're like, don't want to have that happen again, So I don't know. This video feels kind of lost now. I had an agenda of perception and finality, just how finality changes the perception, but also your experiences change your perception, right? Everybody already knows that. But how you could be someone's experience. So prayerfully consider your actions, and be in control. And I struggle with that. I'm like my dad, right? I'm way out of control. In some cases, I feel like I did some things better than Dad, and probably some things worse. And you always have the well, at least you don't. Yeah, at least I don't smoke. Like, well, I don't know. Dad's been smoking from before I was born, and he's 84 now, and he's still smoking. Hadn't had an effect. Maybe it wouldn't have had an effect on me, but I still think it's disgusting. So I'll end it with a lighter something, a lighter story, a lighter little anecdote. I played baseball. I mean, you know that already. My first year in Little League, we're at the rec center. The coaches talk to the parents. My dad's with me, And this is a day and age when you're allowed to smoke cigarettes inside. I know a lot of people listening to this like, what was that even like? Yeah, it was that bad. The day they created a non-smoking section, I was alive. I was alive when there was smoking section, non-smoking section. There didn't used to be that. It just be people could smoke wherever they wanted. And then I remember the days when they removed smoking altogether, and I was like, what is this craziness? This is insane. But that's not the story. So we're standing there with a bunch of kids and all these parents with cigarettes hanging out their mouths, listening to their coach talk. And he goes, all right, y'all go up into that room. You find the ones that say Orioles on it, and you find some that fit your kid, and then we're done with the meeting. So we all walk up into this thing. It's like got just lined with uniforms. So we find the white section that has Orioles, green, white, and yellow. It's white shirt, green, yellow stripe or whatever. My dad finds one, and you're supposed to report in, like show the coach you're ready. So we put on the pants, and they had these socklets that kind of went like all the way up to your knee, and they're just like, you put them over your socks, but they go like this. And there was a green one, it's just colored, and it just matches the uniform. And your pants on baseball pants, and back in the day, would only go to here. So, you know, there's elastic right around here, and those socks would come up to there, and that was the look. You know, they didn't have the long pants ones like they do now. And I see some people wearing the short ones in some things, but for the most part, everybody's wearing long pants. And my dad's like, you're going to show them you know how to wear this stuff, and he's putting on, he said that. So he's right in front of me, like, he's like this close to my face, and the cigarette's hanging out his mouth, and he's going like that, and he's got his eye is like doing this because the smoke is like going up that, and he's like blinking his eye, and I was staring at his face, and he was like down there, you know, looking at my knee and stuff, working on that. I remember thinking, I am never going to do that. That's awful. He can't even breathe, and his eye is burning, and I can't even breathe, and I'm right here. But yeah, so that's the story. You know, it's probably not funny to you, but it was a life-altering event that changed my perception on life and smoking. To me, in a positive spin. So every little thing can change and shape, and just take the things that are good, learn from them, alter your perspective in a positive light, and go and be blessed. Anyway, sorry for the stupid video today. I know it's, well, I'm not judging each one of them and saying, ranking them or whatever, but yeah, I feel like this one was definitely not one of the ones that had any kind of cohesiveness or a rhythm to it. But I hope I get some feedback. Well, you don't have to feedback me. I'm not like trying to like, yeah, type in comments, and I'm not trying to do that, and subscribe to my, and not doing that. But yeah, if you can think of a way to make me help understand what I was trying to relay, that would be helpful, because I feel like it's something that's kind of important, but I just can't get the words around it. It is like, maybe it'll be my life mission at this point. So I love you guys. It's the dad. Bye.